You're listening to the Southern Gospel News Podcast, the most listened to gospel music podcast in the world, with your hosts, Darien Southerland, Southern Gospel Hall of Famer Arthur Rice, and I'm Daniel Britt from Homecoming Radio. Now sit back and relax as you listen to Sgnp.
And welcome back to the world of Sgnp. Darien Southerland here, the guy that causes all the problems on social media, the biggest fan in the world, Arthur Rice, President, Hall of Famer, Southern Gospel Music Association President and Hall of Famer, and not joining us today because he's having to do something for Mr. Gaither, Daniel Britt, but Daniel will be back with us next week. But Arthur, I'm not just saying this, okay? I've been incredibly busy. I'm leading the music at my church. I'm running a company. We produce about 30 of these a week for different folks. I didn't even know the new production stuff that my team, Keith and the guys, are doing now. But you're leading music. You've left the Kingdom Heirs, as folks know, and you've been leading music over at your church. We just been real busy. And we both got emails and messages on Facebook. When are you going to start the podcast back? And here we are.
Here we are.
So what is...
Ta-da.
What's that?
Ta-da.
Ta-da.
Here we are.
Ta-da. I mean, I guess we're entertaining. What do you think? Or we come from a perspective nobody else does. How about that?
Maybe.
Here's what I tell folks. And this is the way I've always thought of it, especially since we added the Daniel Britt element into it. I probably talk from more of the country music, secular angle than anybody else. You talk more from the Southern gospel music, hardcore, that angle, because that's your livelihood. And then Daniel talks from that Gaither angle. So we kind of bring it all together at the end of the day. And we love each other. We may have civil discourse. We may disagree on something one way or another. We've disagreed, but we leave here as buddies. And believe it or not, folks, here's the honest truth. Arthur and I text each other and check on each other. We ain't done a show since last March, I think it was, when we did one with Jeff Chapman when he left the Kingdom Heirs to go Gold City. I mean, that's how long it's been.
Has it been that? Wow, it's hard to believe. I can't believe it's been that long.
Yeah, that's the last episode we done. So, man, there's a lot of stuff going on in gospel music that we hadn't talked about, And
yeah,
what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Gosh, I don't know. I'm so far removed from it now. Really, I'm kind of the last one to find out.
Do you miss the day-to-day though?
Unless Sammy comes, did I miss what?
The day-to-day stuff. I mean, no. That's cool.
I don't miss those 4 shows a day.
Really? People don't realize how tiring that is for you. I mean,
it is. It really is. And it's taxing on you, But I don't miss those 4 shows a day. No, I'm good.
What just so our listeners will know, what is life like or tell everybody what you're doing, because I know what you're doing, but our listeners might not know what you're doing. What are you doing these days?
Well, I'm minister of music at my home church in Asheville, Trinity Baptist Church.
Yeah.
And been here, it'll be 2 years in June. It's hard to believe.
Ain't that crazy?
Yeah, it is. Time goes on. Church life is busy, especially this winter. Usually you think, wintertime is slow. But this winter has been extremely busy. We came out of Christmas and had a couple weeks in January where we were kind of a little bit slow, and then February hit, and then we got into revival. We were into revival for a week and a half, and it just seemed like, man, it was just something, every week there was something new. And then last week we had the Smoky Mountain Jubilee there in Pigeon Forge, which was a great success. We had 3,500 chairs out, and it was packed. We had 3 services, packed every service, and we had like 60-some thousand people watching us online.
That's awesome.
It was crazy. So it was good. That was really my first to be involved in all of it. Last year, I was only there for one night.
Yeah.
And up until that's been going on for a while with Ralph Sexton, C.T. Townsend, Joe Arthur, and it's been going in Pigeon Forge for many years. I mean, it started over there at the convention center, and then it moved to Country Tonight, and then they outgrew it and moved it to LeConte. a few years ago and started out small there in one of the smaller rooms, and then now we're in the big room, so it keeps growing every year. And so this year was my first time because we were, I was always on the road when that was going on before, and so I never could be there. So I really enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun, and I got to lead music this year, so that was a lot of fun.
You mentioned 60,000 people on streaming, and streaming is really changing the way a lot of us consume gospel music. Like I watched, I think it was 2 weeks ago on Singing News TV, I watched Gold City up at Troy Preach's church up in Lebanon, Tennessee that night. Used to you couldn't do something like that. Used to you actually had to go to the concert and to the event and see it.
Yeah, you might catch it on YouTube if they put it up, but it wasn't hardly ever in real time.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Well, I always say this, and I really truly mean this when I say this, and you as a minister of music know this too, because you're more of a producer than I could ever hope to be. What you hear on Facebook doesn't do what you hear, or even streaming doesn't do what happens in person. It doesn't even reflect what happens in person. It sounds so much better in person. I mean, I go back and I listen to my poor choir on Facebook, and I'm embarrassed because it's tough. You know what I'm saying? But in person, we're great.
It's hard to come across online, and that was in fact. We do 2 services on Wednesday. Wednesday's really my long day. We do a service at 10 o'clock on Wednesday. It's called Heritage Keepers, and we have folks drive from 4 states around just to come for that service. Our pastor emeritus, Ralph Sexton, preaches in it. It kind of gives them a chance to, be connected with the people, and he's traveling now and doing evangelistic work. And he's preaching. He's working more now than he's ever worked. He's 74 years old. So that's good. But in fact, we were just talking about that this morning. He was talking about how, the Bible says, forsake not the assembling of ourselves together. And the reason for that is you can watch it online. You can watch the live stream and that sort of thing. And you can see what's going on. But it's being a part of it. There's something about being there in person.
Right.
When we came out of COVID, there's so many people there for so long. It took so long to get our crowds back because everybody got comfortable going to church in their pajamas,
Right.
And so it's taken, several years now to get our crowds are just now coming back. And sadly, I think that's affected a lot of our concerts too. It's kind of the same way. You can watch it online. Well, I don't want to drive 60 miles to go see somebody. I can sit at the house and watch
right.
it, And you do, like I said, you get to see that, but you don't get to experience it.
Right.
It's, you can liken it to like, since the mobile, our cameras are on our phones, and I read a statistic the other day. I wish I could remember the numbers, but it was amazing the amount of pictures that people take. Most people take more pictures in a day than, when we were growing up than we took in in a year.
Right.
On one of those portable cameras, because you knew how many pictures you had.
You had a Polaroid, and it had to be. You had to make sure it was okay. To take that picture.
Yeah, and it was something special,
Right.
And now, Lord, people take more selfies now than they used to take in a year. And you'd send that film off and get it developed and come back, and there'd be pictures on there you didn't even know you took. It'd been that long,
Yeah.
But everywhere you look in every event that you see, everybody's got their phone up, and they're trying to capture that, but they're missing the moment.
Right.
It's like, well, I got a picture of it. Yeah, but what do you remember about it? Well, I don't remember I was taking a picture or I was taking a video. That kind of is a lot like church. You got to be around. There's something about being around God's people that encourages you, that lifts you up, and draws you closer to the Lord, and just that encouragement, that you get from each other.
Yep.
So I think people are missing that just depend on that live stream stuff.
You're right. Arthur, here's what I want to do. I want to take a quick break. I'm going to pull a song your choir sang on live stream, and I'm going to play it on this break. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to tell you what's going on in my life real quick since you filled me in on yours, and we'll go from there and have some fun. Does that sound okay to you?
Absolutely, yeah.
And y'all, pick on Daniel for not being here today. You know, he's got to work for the Godfather, and the Godfather signs his paycheck. So, you know, that's Bill Gaither. So y'all send him emails, send him notes, say, Daniel, we missed you on the first edition of the 5th or 6th season. I forget which one it is for Sgnp. Here we go.
Garden of Gethsemane, before he healed the leper and made the blind man see. Before he walked the shores of Galilee,
we'll stand. We're going to sing about that grace this morning. Marvelous grace of our loving Lord. I'm not going to apologize for those tears. Glad you're saved this morning. Marvelous grace of our King Lord, grace that exceeds our sin and our guilt. Yonder on Calvary's proud outpour, there where the blood of the Lamb was grace, God's grace that will pardon and cleanse within. Grace, God's grace that is greater than all our sin.
And welcome back to Sgnp. Darien Southerland, Arthur Rice, and Daniel's not with us, so we can talk about him bad. And I got something to set him up in a minute, Arthur. But, you know, you were talking about what you're doing in gospel music now. And let me fill the folks in on what I'm doing, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You know, shortly after you started leading music, a lot of people don't know this. I led music locally for years in Cobb County, Georgia, Marietta over here, for years, and was at a couple of different churches. And I hadn't led music in 13 years. And I went to a concert, went to see Triumphant one night, okay? And a gentleman that's a good friend of mine approached me walking out the door, Kevin Scott, and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Man, I just come to the concert, sat on the back row. I do the podcast. I go to a concert every once in a while. I watch it on TV." He said, "You still on radio?" I said, "No, I got my own company. We're doing tons of podcast and advertising. We've done this podcast, da-da-da-da-da." And he challenged me. He said, "You need to be back leading music. You got a gift for the local church." And I said, Kev, just done it. He said, "Have lunch with me." So I went and had lunch with Kevin, and he really encouraged me. Arthur, I've made every excuse in the world. You know, I'm 54 years old. I mean, I've had open heart surgery. You know that. I'm in the best shape of my life, in all honesty, physically. But I kept saying, I can't do it. And then all of a sudden, he said something to me that I'll never forget. He said, "If you don't do it, who's going to do it then locally?" He said, "We're losing people that know this music. What's your grandkids going to get? What are they? They ain't going to know anything about it." And you know how I love the music. You know my heart.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, and kind of put my fleece out there, as the Christian will say, "Hey, going to do this, and da-da-da." And I had 3 or 4 churches we talked to. And finally, a 4th church reached out to me, Pleasant Hill Baptist Church in Powder Springs, Georgia. And I went over there, and the first thing I noticed was facilities. Facilities second to none. They had a praise band. And the pickers in the praise band were tremendous. They could sing, good pianist, good organist. And I said, "Where's the choir?" And they said, "We ain't had a choir since COVID." And you mentioned it just a second ago. You know, COVID took a lot of attendance away from church.
Yep.
I said, "Well, if I'm going to do this, we're going to start a choir." And I started October of 2023. We started the choir this way. You'll appreciate this. You remember when you were a kid in church and they'd get up, song leader to lead a song or two, and he said, "Everybody in the choir, come on up and sing," okay? And everybody'd stand up. So we went early 1970s, late 1960s, and we just did a congregational choir where we brought the folks up, sang a couple of songs that they knowed, and then we started practicing every other week. Man, it's fun. It's fun. It's growing. My music, we took the praise band who was doing some great songs and gave them some primitive stuff. And man, you ever heard a praise band do a primitive song? Man, we can tear "Because He Loves Me" slap up. It's been fun, Arthur. We just did what we call, some people may have seen this on social media. We put this together because, like you, I love choir music, okay? I think it is the missing ingredients for churches right now. People want to participate more than ever, okay? And with choirs, they love it. So we did what we called in November. I said, I'm going to do something special this first quarter. And everybody's like, well, what group you going to bring in? And you know how it is. Your phone rings once a week with 2 or 3 groups calling saying, Arthur, we're going to be in your area. Can we stop by? All we want to do is blah, blah, blah. And you know that. And that was happening with me because when people started finding out Darien was back in it, we've both got a lot of friends and we want to help all our friends, but we just can't, because time won't permit it. But anyway, I said, we're going to do something a little different. So I had never met Joey Gore and the Wilmington Celebration Choir before, okay? I'd only heard them because I listened to my buddy Matt Wall's radio station over in Wilmington, North Carolina, Hope Radio. So I listened to him and I said, man, that's an awesome Southern gospel choir. And I called 2 of my friends who direct some of the best Southern gospel choirs, or choirs that feature mostly Southern gospel work. Morning View Baptist in Ackworth that everybody sings at, and Cheatham Hill Baptist, Steve McIntyre's choir over there, that they've had everybody from the Irwins to the Wisnuts lately, but people love going to their church. And I said, what do y'all think about us putting 4 choirs together and doing a choir and hymn festival? The hymn part, we basically, when we changed the choirs out on stage, we'd lead a song out of a hymn, kind of take a page out of Gerald Wolfe's book right there, but had awesome local musicians, use these skills that we have from being a radio guy to make sure this thing was timed out right. And Arthur, it plain got out of the banks, if you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. It was a good time. And now, I told you this the other week when I talked to you, don't be surprised when I say, hey, man, put you about 50 of your guys on a bus, come down here, we'll pay you gas and take care of y'all, come on to the next choir festival. Would you believe we've had 5 churches call us since that event saying, hey, can you do this at my church? We don't have a choir, we want to build something up. And really, that's why we started this. My wife picks on me, Arthur. Mary says, Darien, you're the only man I know that starts in the choir business 6 months ago and is already organizing concerts and doing things. But you know what, man? It's what the Lord's got me doing, and it's fun. It's fun. It's just plain fun. Yeah. And I believe this right here. I believe people want to participate. People's asked me what I thought about COVID, and I said this, that there's a reason the Lord, when he created the nature system that we live in, that we prune apple trees, okay? There's a reason why you prune a tree, why you prune a bush, why you cut grass. Well, COVID may just been a pruning mechanism for the local church, kind of cut out the dead spots, so to speak, so the good spots could get in there and really get to work. And, hey, it is what it is. We live in a society now that it's different. I mean, the Asheville you live in now or work in now isn't the Asheville you grew up in, In the Atlanta I live in, isn't the Atlanta I grew up in. So that's what's going on in my world, man. And we're having a good time. So, we'll let Daniel tell the world he's going in, what he's doing in next week. But man, they had some big news last week when his organization he works for, took over Enlighten. Bill Gaither's Homecoming Radio takes over Enlighten. What'd you think of that news? I mean, you're not in the Beltway anymore, but you had to hear it. I mean, and when you heard it, you had to think twice.
Yeah. It had a chance of going under so many times, and to see it being able to carry forward, that's great. That's great news.
One of the things that encourages me is I'm fortunate enough, and I'm good friends with Daniel as you are too. But when Daniel talks about Bill Gaither, 88 years old, Jason Clark tells me the same thing, says he's always thinking, he don't have to do this. He don't have to do this. Right. Folks, he don't need the money. He does it because he loves it, and who else will do it? And that's part of the reason I got back into leading music. But Daniel sits there and says, you realize he's 88 and he's got a 5-year business plan for what he wants to do. Now, that's dedication. Yeah. Is that not dedication?
Well, it's having a vision.
Yeah.
It's having a vision.
Yeah. So, my hope in all this, and I'll tell you this and you'll laugh, my hope in all this is that Daniel ends up being the program director over there at Enlighten, and they put him back on the air. That'd be cool. That would be cool because he's got a great voice and he loves the business more than any other DJ in America I know, and there's a lot of good ones out there. I'm not throwing off on any other DJ, but Daniel's a friend, so I got my picks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Hey, who have you heard lately? Let me ask you that. This whole show is unplanned today, and it's off the cuff, and we're just asking stuff. We're just sitting on the porch talking to each other. We're not really on the porch. Arthur's getting ready for church. It's a Wednesday, and I'm sitting in the studio here in Atlanta. Who have you heard lately? Well, I mean, you heard any groups live? You heard anybody come by the church? Any?
I haven't. I've got something we're excited about. We got the Checkwagon Gang is coming this fall.
Awesome.
So they're going to have their homecoming at our church this fall. And in fact, we just talking with Shay yesterday, just working some of the details out. And in fact, we were talking about that one night. It's a 3-day event, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And we were talking about that on the Friday night of doing some hymn sing stuff and kind of geared around the Chuckwagon Gang and their music and, that 4-part harmony kind of stuff. So we're excited about that. That's coming up. And I go next week for the Big and Live down in Gaston, Alabama, with Johnny and Ronnie Parrott, Ray Dean, Nick Bruno, and a bunch of the former Kingsmen, and we're going to try to put something together and have a good time with that.
Yep, that'll be good. You know what always amazes me about that Big and Live event at Gadsden is you got Gold City boys promoting that thing. I mean, I thought y'all were, competition, Gold City and the Kingsmen back in the day, But yet you got Jonathan down there working hard to make sure everybody comes and hears this Big and Live event. And Jonathan's as Gold City is almost as Tim Riley. You know what I'm saying? So.
Well, back in the day, before, especially back in the 80s, when I was there, when Gold City was just coming on, and, we were all on the same record company, same Century 2 promotions. And,
right.
We worked together just about every week. That's kind of where that King's Gold kind of thing started. We were doing that way before they ever started recording it.
Right.
Just to do something on the second half together. And the Kingsmen and Gold City have always been kind of tied a lot together. Eldridge produced a lot of their early records.
Right.
And in fact, just about every number one song they had in the 80s, the Kingsmen turned down.
That's like...
But, you got people, it's kind of like, always kidding Jim about, well, you had that song first, but, it's like telling Elvis he couldn't sing. Well, he didn't tell Elvis he couldn't sing. He told Elvis he couldn't sing parts. And, so it kind of got that way. But, their songs, they didn't really fit us, but they fit them perfectly. Eldridge took those songs and, made them a household name. And so, it's always been that, we've always worked really close to, with Gold City and, Gold City and Kingsman were kind of always been real close.
Is that fun for you to get to do those events? Is that kind of like these Hall of Fame baseball players doing their reunion days? Is that what it's kind of like?
Well, it is for me, especially because I get to sing a little bit with some of my heroes, the guys that I grew up singing or listening to, and kind of patterning myself after. It's just an honor to be able to be a part of that. Be just a small part of that program. As long as they're still with us, I hope to be a part of it and be with them. So
right. I will tell you this. I got to go see for the first time in about 4 years Karen Peck in New River about a month ago. And I'm going to make a statement about this that may shock some people. But and hear me out when I say this. Karen Peck is the first lady that I have seen in a long time in gospel music that, number one, she will have, before it's all said and done, and when I say this, people are going to say, no way, she will have the same impact on this industry that Vestal had by the time she retires.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that at all. And I would even go as far as to say that she'll have the impact that Connie has had over the years.
Yeah.
And God's using them in a special way.
Yep.
And they've got a real anointing about them, and I love them.
Every time someone mentions her name, and this is not just from you, the word anointing comes up when you talk about Karen. Mm-hmm. And let's face it, Arthur, you know this and I know this. This is a male-dominated industry still to this day. And Karen is crossing rivers that no other woman was ever able to cross, so to speak. You follow what I'm saying?
She really,
I mean,
absolutely. She kind of elbowed her way right into the middle of it.
That's what I know.
And we're better for it.
We're
better for it.
You're exactly right. From the business aspects, I mean, I sat there and I'm listening to her, and I'm realizing every second song she sang is the number one song. I had a chance to talk to her a little bit afterwards, and you'll laugh when I tell you this. And I know Grant listens to the podcast all the time, but Grant was happy that we were starting it back. He sent me a message when he found out that. But Karen, out of nowhere, mentioned my name from the stage. And I mean, I'm not great friends with Karen. We're friends. We're she knew of Darien Southerland, but she had never put her eyes on me, so to speak. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And she thanked me for being there from the stage, and she said, you know what, Darien, I agree with about 98% of what you say, but I just can't tell everybody I agree with what you say. So it was kind of funny. But, and I don't brag on her because of that. I call it like I see it. There are a few groups out there that if one person stopped singing, that the group would disband. If Karen Peck in New River, if something happened to Karen tomorrow, yes, Grant would go on into business. I'm not sure Susan would. I'm not sure her kids would. But I promise you this, it wouldn't be the same group. You can't replace her. She's that part. I mean, she's a Hall of Famer, both in the GMA and in the SGMA. So, I mean, I got a chance to see them. And then group I watched online that I'm just mesmerized with is the Inspirations. I mean, good-looking guys, just note for note hitting their numbers. People are loving them, and maybe it's because they're young and good looking. I promise you this, you think teenagers ain't going to gospel concerts or young ladies ain't going to gospel concerts, and I don't know if those fellers are married or single or what, but I promise you this, there's some single ladies going to see the Inspirations because they're good-looking kids, and they sing awesome. They do extremely well. I don't recall the kid's name, but I used to think Austin Wyatt. I used to think Mike Holcomb was the end-all, be-all bass singer. That Austin Wyatt is tough. He's a great young bass singer. Great young bass singer. So good stuff. Great young stuff.
They are.
Hey, we talked about streaming. We talked about streaming earlier, and I want to have a little fun before we close the show out. Can we do this? I'm hitting you with a curveball, okay? You know how I like to hit you with curveballs. So I said, because it's Easter week, I made this real easy. Have you been on Microsoft Copilot yet? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know, but I haven't been on it, but yes, I know what you're talking about.
So Microsoft
I read a lot of that AI stuff.
Okay, it's AI, okay? Right before this show, and I printed it out, and it's right here in my hand. You can see my screen. I'm showing you right here. I said to Microsoft Copilot, take the hymn Because He Lives and write me another verse. Do you want to hear what AI wrote on that verse?
Sure.
All right. It ain't bad. When shadows fall and doubts arise, I lift my eyes to endless skies. For in His grace my heart believes, my Savior lives, and so I'll sing. And then it goes into the chorus, because He lives. I can face tomorrow because He lives. All fear is gone because I know He holds a future. Blah, blah, blah. But it ain't bad, Arthur. It ain't bad. I mean, it ain't really bad. So then I went one step further with this AI thing and was having some fun, okay? And I said, tell me about gospel music Hall of Famer Arthur Rice. You want to hear what it says about you? What the computer world says about you, Arthur?
Oh, Lord, yeah.
It describes you great, by the way. It's not going to be. It's good. It's great. I said, tell me about Arthur Rice. Here's what it said. Arthur Rice, known for his powerful and soul-stirring vocals, has left an indelible mark on the Southern gospel music scene. Let's dive into his journey. Arthur was born on December 27th. I'm not going to tell you what year in the 60s it was, okay? In Asheville, North Carolina. He began his musical journey as lead singer for the Kingsmen in 1984. After his tenure with the Kingsmen, he traveled with Squire Parsons and Redeemed. However, it was in 1995 that Arthur Rice found his true home when he joined the Kingdom Heirs as their lead singer. And I mean, it goes on, and I mean, it says Arthur Rice's legacy in Southern gospel music is unparalleled. His spectacular voice, daily laughter on and off stage, and encouraging presence will be deeply missed by the Kingdom Heirs. Despite the challenges faced, including the pandemic, the Kingdom Heirs continue to share a message of hope and blah, 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 blah. But, I mean, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy what the world knows
Well,
about it. So I was just having some fun. Just having some fun. So anyway, well, next Wednesday, we're going to do this again. And I'm going to tell you who our guest is, because every time I tell you who our guest is, they don't join us because something comes up. But I'll tell you anyway. And you're going to like this. And I ain't even told you this. We got Daryl and Ricky Luster coming on. We're going to talk.
Oh, that'll be good.
We're going to talk about Charles Johnson back in the day.
Oh, that'll be good. Yeah.
And that'll be some.
That'll be fun.
It'll be some fun stuff. But man, I'm gonna tell you, I've missed doing this. I know some people have missed us doing this. If you want us to interview somebody, we need to go back and grab some legends and interview them again, because we hadn't talked to them in 2 or 3 years. We need to get your cousin on. We need to get Ray Dean on here. You know, we need to go back and grab Archie while we can, because it's funny. It's funny, that generation, you know, they're not getting any younger, because you and I aren't getting any younger. You know.
Well, amen to that.
My friend, what else you got? Anything?
Well.
Oh, I didn't ask you this, and I'm not going to get into the Hall of Fame, by the way, but not the voting. I'm not going to get into that. But how is the Hall of Fame going right now? I'm not getting into the voting. People can vote on who they want. But anyway.
It's going good. We just finished the first round of nominations this past Monday.
Yeah.
And it finished up, and then the Veterans Committee will meet, and then we'll start voting on the final group that will go in this year. And so hopefully we'll have that pretty soon to be able to announce those. But it's going good. It's going good. We've had a lot of interest, a lot of people that's gone through the museum, and it's going really good. It's going really good.
I got to go by the museum. I was in town. The museum wasn't open that day, but I got to go see my brick. So I went and took a picture of that. Yeah. My kids got me a brick for my birthday. Yeah.
A great little display. My wife put all that together, and she's the director of the Hall of Fame and museum there, and she works really hard at that. She's put together just a first class.
It is. And let me tell you, she's nice as can be, because my daughter, whose only thing she knows about Southern gospel music is her daddy made her stand up on stage when she was 12 and sing a song, and she's been terrified of it ever since. She said she talked to your wife after we got the brick, and they realized who each other was, that she was my daughter and you were married, and blah, 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 blah. So it's had a good conversation. But needless to say, I tell folks this all the time, and people's asked me about the Hall of Fame and this, that, and other. I said, you know what? It's a no-win situation a lot of times, but I'm proud the interest is there, because guess what? It gets people talking about something. And if it gets people talking about it, it's good. That's just the way life is these days. I will tell you this. I'd never seen, and I've been doing this with you now for 5 or 6 years. In the 5 or 6 years that I've seen this Hall of Fame voting, I've never seen as much campaigning as I've seen on social media this year. There was a lot. There was a lot. So anyway, and folks that are listening to us, I put mine out there. So if you want to find out, go look me up on social media. You'll see what I wrote. What else you got? Anything, my friend?
That's about it. It's great talking to you again, and look forward to getting back at it, started back at it.
Well, let's have some fun, and maybe we'll get some pillows. You know, they sent us pillows one time. My pillow did. Maybe we can get us some coffee or some Omaha steaks or something like that. If people will tell their friends about us, you know, podcasts are only getting more popular, and usually we get between 30 and 50,000 people download every one of these episodes. So, hey, we might not think much, but somebody thinks we're pretty good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
as long as they'll listen.
Yep. And you know what? It's funny. The older I get, I'm going to say this. It's kind of funny. I'll leave you with this, and we'll get off here, and I'll close with one of their songs. The older I get, the more I love the primitive. Ain't that weird how we change in life? I mean, that I just miss them now that they don't sing no more. I mean, I really do. But anyway. All right, my friend, we'll talk next week. And Arthur, I always say this. What's wrong with living right anyway?
Not a thing.
Not a thing. We'll talk to you next week on SGNP.